Hello, English 1B students. How are you? It's Professor Graham, and I hope this finds you having a fabulous weekend and enjoying our novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. I'm really enjoying reading your discussion questions and really anticipate some fabulous essays on the novel. So there are a couple things I'd like to go over in this hopefully brief video. It's going to really focus on the novel essay. So I'd like to go over that with you. But before I do, I wanted to say you guys are all doing a fabulous job. I'm so impressed with this class. The current grades right now, there are 6 A's, 3 of which are more than 100%. Actually, there are 103, 107, and 109% each. And then there is 100% and a 96%. So really high A's, really just doing great. And there are 4 B's, 4 C's, 3 D's, and 3 F's. And the D's are positioned to go upward. So definitely keep plugging away at it if you're on the borderline. You're all doing just great. So just keep at it. We're almost there. So I'm always here for you if anyone wants to have a Zoom conference, or you've all been really good at emailing me any questions you have or for any clarification. Keep doing that. I'm really enjoying this and look forward to hearing from you. So next, I'd like to discuss the novel submission. Let's see, the novel essay. And if you would please, if you haven't already, go ahead and take notes on what I'm about to say. And you can email me your notes for an extra 5 points on your essay score. So for extra credit, go ahead and email me your notes on this lecture. So first, I'd like to just in general say that whenever you're writing about a novel or a short story or piece of literature, it's best to introduce the piece through the time it was written. In literature, there's usually a literary group of people that the author is associated with, and that includes the time it was written. And so in the case of Zora Neale Hurston, she was a member of the Harlem Renaissance. So I'd like for you all to do a little bit of independent research and look into what the Harlem Renaissance was or is, the literary movement, who the authors were, what their general themes were, and know that Zora Neale Hurston was very much part of that group. Just real quick before I begin, I'd also like for you to include one extra resource that is of scholarly level, and you guys know what that means. It can be a .org or a .edu website, and you could very easily focus on, it doesn't have to be, extensive research. Just look up the Harlem Renaissance, and you can also use the Zora Neale Hurston biography video that was included with this module as a resource. And anything else you would like to include, you're more than welcome to. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. But the introduction should really help give meaning to the novel itself. And so you'll want to include the time in which it was written. As you know, we've been discussing the themes throughout this week as you read, answering the questions. And those questions are there to help with your comprehension of the novel and explore these topics as you approach this novel. So the novel is, or I'm sorry, as you approach this essay. So this essay is really sort of like the place where you get to explore the questions a little bit further in depth. And so it's in addition to showing your writing skills, we're looking at exploring the novel a little bit more in depth. So definitely stay away from summarizing it. And you'll know you're doing it if you're doing it. You feel it, you're retelling the story, and that is something we want to stay away from. But anyway, so the introduction, maybe your hook in this essay, starts with the time in which it was written, and gives the background of the Harlem Renaissance, segues into who Zora Neale Hurston was as a member of the Harlem Renaissance, and how this novel represents that. So that's my suggestion in terms of how to write an introduction about any novel, but this novel in particular. So you have some options for which prompt you choose. You want to focus on analysis, right? And I actually have up here, class, just as a reminder to avoid writing in first person or referring to me or you or we at any point in this essay. It really shouldn't have any personal reflection at all. It should be in third person and should focus on the novel itself. If you do want to interject something personal, then the way to do that in the third person is to, instead of saying like, I think that blah, 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 you might say, one could easily imagine that this character, blah, 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 right? So hopefully that helps you as you draft this essay. Okay, so your options here, your first one, your first prompt says, in 1937, Richard Wright reviewed Their Eyes Were Watching God and wrote, quote, the sensory sweep of her novel carries no theme, no message, no thought. In the main, her novel is not addressed to the Negro, but to a white audience whose chauvinistic tastes she knows how to satisfy. In particular, Wright objected to the novel's discussion of race and use of Black dialect. Why might Wright have objected to Their Eyes Were Watching God? Do you agree or disagree with Wright's interpretation of the novel? Class, if you do choose this prompt, I do suggest review or researching who Richard Wright was and what his relationship was to Zora Neale Hurston and why he might have said this. So you'll want to do a little bit of you'll want to kind of explore that. And if his quote offends you, that would be a good way to write an argument paper against, defending the novel. So the next one says, discuss the idea of the horizon in Their Eyes Were Watching God. What does it symbolize for Janie? So this is a starting point question in your essay, and some of you really did, I think at least two of you wrote about the horizon quote in the discussion, because the horizon is a symbol of something, right? And it could be a symbol for various things, and at various times in Janie's life, that horizon resurfaces. So what could that possibly mean? It doesn't necessarily just mean one thing, hint, hint. The horizon changes as we age in this lifetime and as we experience things, as our dreams change, as they evolve, and sometimes, things, well-intended efforts, in spite of everything one does, they, can't change or can't predict the outcome, right? Life happens. So the horizon in this novel comes up several times as a, as a place in the novel, as a place for Janie. So what does that symbolize? And so don't limit yourself. If you choose this, don't feel limited by this one question. You are sort of expected to develop it past just this one question. So discuss the idea of the horizon in the novel. I do want to point out right here that this novel, any novel, the title, it should be in italics, not quotation marks. Quotation marks go on the titles of short stories. All right. The next prompt says, compare and contrast Janie's 3 marriages. What initially pulls her to each of the 3 men? How do they differ from one another? What does she learn from each experience? So there are some guiding questions in this prompt. I do also want to point out that it will be a compare and contrast essay. And so you'll want to use compare and contrast format and the transitions that are appropriate for that. So if you guys haven't written a compare and contrast essay in a while, please go ahead and look up the format, and the reminder is to keep each paragraph separate, because those are your 3, you have your 3 husbands, the 3 marriages, and so you can discuss those different relationships, and just make sure that each subject, which are each husband, is separate, right? We don't combine subjects in paragraphs. You keep those separate, and then you compare them on the same points of comparison. So if you're going to talk about the age that Janie was when she got married to each one, you want to include that in each one. You know what I'm saying? So you pick your points of discussion on the husbands. So I'm just making this up, and it's very early in the morning, so don't rely on what I'm about to say. It's just off the top of my head. Please have your own thoughts on the subject. But so you might consider the age or the maturity of the place in her life when she met the person, and what they symbolize, or what their sort of I'm trying to think, like, what they're offering to Janie. I mean, and what restrictions would have come with those things. So you might talk about the age, the maturity, the length in which they were married, the distance they go in the marriage, both literal and figural. So those are just some starting points, but I hope what your takeaway is that when you compare and contrast the 3 marriages, you're doing a point-by-point comparison within each paragraph. And you're remembering to use the transitions that emphasize your thesis statement. And then again, you have these questions to consider here, but don't feel limited by them. Perhaps you might have something else to discuss that you have been thinking as you read the novel. So definitely use that to voice your considerations. All right. The next prompt is about her marriages. So in her marriage, again, another one, but in a different way. This really focuses on Jo, or Jody. So in her marriage to Jody, Janie is dominated by his power. At several points, however, it is obvious that he feels threatened by her. Why does Jody need to be in control of everyone around him? How does Janie threaten Jody in his sense of control? You guys have had a lot of questions to answer in your assignments. So you have been thinking about these things. You definitely have had a starting point on this. And again, don't feel limited by these questions, but you'll want to answer them as you within your essay, not in this order, of course, but you know, these are the questions you would want to address in your essay. And then your last prompt says, their eyes were watching God is concerned with issues of speech and how speech is both a mechanism of control and a vehicle of liberation. Yet Janie remains silent during key moments in her life. Discuss the role of silence in the book and how that role changes throughout the novel. So Janie has some private moments, starting with the first chapter when she's lying under the tree and sort of experiencing nature in a most natural way, in a literal natural way, without really any questions about anything. And then and so there's, in her youth, there's a naturalness that it could only occur in silence, right? But as we go on, as the reader takes in the novel, there are other areas in Janie's life where she is silenced by someone else, or perhaps she silences herself. So these are some different scenes that might come to mind as you think back on reading the novel. By the way, I do want to point something out here that you'll see in the prompts, and that is, whenever you write about literature, it should be in the present tense. So Janie is dominated by his power. The novel is concerned with issues of speech and how speech is both the mechanism of control and a vehicle of liberation. The other thing, class, is when you're writing about anything, the question is, especially in literature, why is it relevant today? This novel was written almost 100 years ago, and I bet as you read it, you're relating to some of the characters or some of the situations that the characters are in. Why is that relevant? So whenever you're sort of stumped and thinking, what should my approach be? Where should I take this? That is my sort of, general approach to literature, is answering the question, why is it relevant today? Why are we reading it today? So you could always sort of seek to explain that in whatever prompt you choose, right, as you formulate your argument. So I am just kind of thinking here what to advise you on. There is the rubric down here, class, so definitely take a moment, and I'm sure most of you hope to get an A, right? So look at what the rubric requires of an A essay, and strive for that, especially during revision. Lastly, I think that's it for the novel. Don't forget a works cited page. And then just real quick before I sign off here and let you get to work, wanted to address our future modules. This submission of the essay is your last thing to do for the novel module, as I'm sure you're well aware and looking forward to. And then we have, after the submission on the 7th, I think it is, right? Oh, it's the 6th. Okay. So the 6th. After that, we have the drama module, which is you will not be required to read the play on its own. You get to follow along as you watch it, and you'll have to make citations and answer questions. So the trick will be, have the play open, have the questions open, and watch the play, and you'll just hit pause every once in a while. So I suggest reading the questions in advance, and then hitting pause every once in a while, answering the homework question, include a citation, which the citation for a play is a little bit different. I'll save that for a different video. And then after, but and then you write an essay. So getting the homework done, reading it, and watching it is all one and the same. So in that sense, it will go very, very quickly. And I'm sure you'll be very happy about that. So as when you look at the homework assignment, don't be overwhelmed by the amount of questions. They're really for reading comprehension, and they're intended for you to have open as you watch it, okay? Don't forget a works cited page when you do submit that. And then lastly, real quick, after the drama, that's it. Then you write an essay and submit it. And then we have our poetry module, and that will be just kind of an independent research assignment on the poet of your choice. And there are some parameters on the poet. He or she must be famous, right? Not just a friend down the street or anything. But we'll talk a little bit about that again as it comes on, but you'll just have one essay to write, and then you'll get to do a slideshow presentation to submit with that. So it's really just kind of 2 projects based on one poet of your choice. And that's it. So hope that helps you with your essay and gets you in the mindset of what is expected this week and in the 2 weeks after this. But email me with any questions, email me your notes, and have a fabulous weekend, you guys. All right, I'll talk to you soon.